In recent years, there has been a rise in the amount of evasive phishing methods, which in this case mixes reverse harness and URL shortening services. So if you go to this link, you actually see that there are multiple there are of course multiple methods of social engineering and phishing, but one that is quite common nowadays is that scammers or cyber criminals will use URL shortening services such as Bitly and Cutly to social engineer their victims into divulging their bank details or going to redirecting the websites to download malware and infecting their host machines. And thus, as a recent cybersecurity graduate, I thought that it might be interesting to embark on a project that could potentially give the power back of triaging malicious links or suspicious activity to end users themselves who may not be very tech savvy. And so, as an ex-malware analyst intern, I thought that I make use of two tools in my toolkit that I use quite frequently to triage malicious links myself, namely Virustotal as well as Urlscan.io. Both of these tools come with a fully featured API which developers can use to develop applications or scripts to assist users in triaging these links. And thus I created these two STrAT, which stands for the Site Triage and Analysis Tool. So I wrote this mainly actually for myself because I found that it was quite a hassle to actually go to the various sites and paste in my URL and then select the options whether I want a private, unlisted or public scan, and then the country and press enter and then wait for the result. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be easier for me to develop something that could do it all in one, so using code in a sense. So jumping into the code, I actually created a script. So this script, actually you will need a .env file with your API keys inside, and so you just need to refer to the documentation that I provided in my requirements of the README page. There's a few requirements that you need to download first, and an env file that you need to prepare, and then you have to specify your own Virustotal and Urlscan.io API keys. Thereafter, you can proceed to actually clone the repo using the link provided in the description and run the tool. So in this case, I've actually created a virtual environment, but that's not needed. That's totally up to you, but for convenience sake I decided to do so. And remember to also install the requirements. So to run this tool, quite simply, you just have to specify Python and then the script name, which is STrAT.py. Okay, I'm not going to run this first as I'm going to do some explanation. So I have a few functions here: get API, which retrieves the specific environment variables which we specified, which are the Urlscan and the Virustotal API keys. Thereafter, we have other URLs, so referring to the main function first. There's a function called to get API keys, and then the user will enter some input, and thereafter I will create a scan to post to the Virustotal API, and then I would also thereafter use the data that I got back in the JSON format to decode it and also extract out the information that I need for this tool to work. And so I actually specified this metric parameter of malicious count of 9. So this of course can be tweaked according to your liking, but based on for demonstration purposes, I've just kept it as 9. Anything higher than that is probably going to be flagged as malicious anyway, so here you go. For Urlscan.io, it's a similar process. So create a post request, get a response, and then we also checked extract the important bits of information. Urlscan.io has this download image functionality, which we will explore later on, and then it also has this capability of telling whether the link is malicious or not. But take note that Virustotal is generally much more accurate than Urlscan.io because it's made out of multiple AV engines which scan the sample at the same time. So exploring the key functionalities of this, let me just expand the here. So this tool actually allows, if you go to the releases tab, you actually can see the type of the format of URLs that it accepts. So it accepts URLs with HTTP or HTTPS, defined URLs with the XXXP, and then the square brackets, which help to define the supposedly malicious URL, as well as those that just don't have the protocol itself. So this function checks whether the user has applied either a normal URL with HTTP or HTTPS protocol or the defined counterparts, and if not, it actually refangs the URL itself if it has been defanged, because ultimately I want to test whether the refanged URL is so-called malicious or not. And for these purposes, I've used Fishtang to actually do sort of a probing to see whether the website is alive, but of course there may be false positives, so in future releases I may use a different API set. And also there is the check and sanitize URL, where I apply a regex pattern to check and refang the URL. Alright, so let's just run the script and see what happens for now. I now have to enter URL to check against. So for example, I can go back to the article on Believing Computer and copy the link, perhaps paste it in, and hit enter, and it's off to its races. So firstly, as you can see in the main function, it checks does the post request to Virustotal first, thereafter it posts to Urlscan.io, but I have future plans to make this run concurrently in order to save more time for the user, as in case one of which takes longer. So probably I'm going to implement some sort of async functionality. And then you can also see that I have this functionality where Urlscan.io, because if you actually do a normal scan, it does take some time to load, so I have some sort of async functionality to get the response. So you'll have 404 and keep making the request, time out for 5 seconds, keep making the request until it gets a 200 OK, and then finally it will return the result. There's, as mentioned earlier, there's also a functionality to download the screenshot in the Urlscan.io, and what this does is mainly downloads a screenshot into target.png, but right here there isn't a screenshot, so let's try with another URL itself. So perhaps you can navigate to Twitter, and Kaspersky has posted a lot of shortened links, so maybe you can copy one of these, one of the shortened links themselves, and paste it in and press enter. So this is the one with the refanging of the URL, and then you go on to check the parameters and use the Fishtang and so on. So it takes quite a slight while. So we can see that mainly I have classified them into the Virustotal as well as the Urlscan.io the results separately, but I plan to combine these together since they give a more comprehensive view altogether. Alright, so the screenshot is downloaded. Let's see. Okay, right here there is a screenshot of the page itself. So this is one of Urlscan.io's key functionalities. That concludes the briefing about the tool itself. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, or reach out to me. Feel free to go on to the GitHub page and provide any feedback that you may have, and feel free to create a pull request. And so in future versions, let me just share with you what I'm planning to do. So right now, the tool as of now is accepting a URL after being prompted, but in future I would like to have the tool accept command line arguments. So for example, displaying a help menu, or modifying certain parameters such as the public or private type of scan. So if you go to Urlscan, you can actually select on the GUI itself, or on the web interface you can select a public, private, or listed stat scan. And also maybe have a loading bar for the Virustotal, and maybe the Urlscan.io tool, or a spinning wheel, so that it will be more interactive to the user, and the user wouldn't have to think that the tool has been stuck. And maybe I also want to include some APIs from AI engines like hybrid analysis to do some heuristics based scanning. So that's all for the video. Thank you for your time, and thank you for watching.